You guys know what to do. Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT show. I'm Daniel, and tonight we're going to be going back into the Nancy Guthrie abduction. We've had some guests over the last few shows who were kind of taking us into a little bit of a different perspective on a few things. I was on with Chris McDonough, former homicide detective, a couple of nights on ago. And then shortly after that, we had Steve, who was a former CSI investigator. And then after that, immediately, I went to Jen Coffindaffer's channel, and I was a guest on her channel, and she's former FBI. So we've talked extensively about this case for those that have followed me on all those episodes, and kind of getting a better picture and a better view. And I think tonight would be a good night to bring on a friend of the show who's an expert in psychology, who maybe perhaps can help answer some behavioral questions when it comes to the suspect. So without further ado, let's bring in our guest, Dr. Jamie Vona. How's it going, doctor?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. We had a good day today. We did it was we were celebrating my dad's birthday earlier, and so he came over and we did a fire wood fire pizza in the
Is he
backyard.
doing better with his heart and everything? I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, 100%. He's doing really good. He's doing really, really good. Him and my grandfather both, who have had heart issues, and so they're doing
Good to
well.
hear that. Good to hear that.
Yeah. So, how have you been? Anything new on your end?
My daughters just both graduated, so I just had a huge party here, and I'm glad that it's over. So now I can focus again on YouTube. I haven't been on in a couple days.
In a couple of days. Well,
Yeah.
there's a few things that we've discussed, and tonight, what I want to do is I want to go over some, I guess, the psychology of what you see when you look at the suspect. So let me share my screen here. Oh, I don't know why they did that. That's going to be next. There we go. So we know a couple of things, right? We know that, or we assume that this is the first time that the abductor's walking up to the front door. Um, w- you know, we can assume at this point that Miss Guthrie is probably still inside, asleep, and it's roughly anywhere between 1:30 and but possibly or even as late as 2:15. Now I don't know if you've watched here recently my video with Steve. Um, he kind of discovered that there's a good possibility that this is actually happening a lot later than what law enforcement indicated.
Why does he think that?
Well, let me pull it up real quick. So let's do that first, and then we'll go into the more in depth with this. So give me one sec. Let me pull it up.
That's interesting.
Alrighty. So let's put us on the side here. All right. FBI described suspect in Nancy Guthrie surveillance video as an average build of the height of 5'9" and 5'10". Now, Steve has given me the website. I need to go back and look at it. But what he did was he measured we took the width of the sidewalk, the measurement of the shadow, based it on the location of the moon at the time of when he's supposedly walking up, and that gives us a guess estimate of height. And so when we adjust the height for what he is, that gives us an estimate of time. You know what I'm saying? And
I
so
do. That's
so
interesting.
so when you back that up, so at here, this is at 2:10 a.m. local to here. Um, at 2:10 a.m. it's 72 inches, which is, I mean, I'm not good with what's 72 divided by 12.
Well, 60 inches is 5 foot, so 6 foot.
So that's 6 foot. So at about 210, so maybe perhaps, there we go, 60 at 71, that's at 212. And then at 70, it's at 214. Now he goes based off of the different times, and then he verifies it again, this is based on the location of the moon with what the shadows would have lined up with. And for the shadow angle, for it to have been, and to be at that angle, it would have been around 2:14, 2:12 in the morning.
That's interesting. What do you think? Do you think that's
Well, I had Chris McDonough on,
yeah?
and he sent the video to and somebody that does some stuff like in astronomy or in college, and they came up with the same answer.
Wow, that's interesting.
Now, one of the things that kind of popped up in my mind, let me pull it up real quick, because to me, that tells me, all right, well, if they're playing with the timeline, is there like room to play with the timeline, right? Because when you do that, when you play with the timeline, you can kind of get into a situation where you have people who are looking at their cameras, right? And so here they say that at 1:47 the doorbell disconnects, and that at 2:12 software detects a person on camera, but no picture or video or anything's available. 2:12 is the time that Steve's kind of estimating that that could be him walking up. Now, how can they maintain this timeline without, with maybe perhaps misleading the public? That way, if somebody were to come forward and say, hey, you know what, I committed this crime, one of the questions is like, all right, well, what time did you show up? What time were you walking up there? Right. And if they're like, oh, I walked up there at 1:47 and it was really at 2 something, then it may not be your guy. Right. And so now what I'm suspecting is they probably have some sort of evidence that the suspect arrives at 1:47. I'm now.
Well, the doorbell disconnects.
Right. Well, that's what they're saying.
Oh, I see.
Now, in order to maintain this timeline without it, because like I said, what you endanger by misleading the public with a timeline is your tips, because you have people that are going to be looking out for vehicles at the wrong time, on their surveillance, on things of that nature. And so you want to maintain the timeline, but what you're going to want to do is possibly, and the only reason I could think you do this is if you don't have very much information or very much evidence. Let me rephrase that. And you're trying to keep things close to the vest. And if you're keeping the timeline if you're misleading the public with the timeline to keep things close to the vest, that's interesting. But my thought process is they probably have evidence that he was there at 1:47. He's got the gun in front of his like crotch area. You don't drive that way. So I'm assuming he probably had to get geared up there at the house to a certain extent, whether it was just putting on the weapon and the backpack or the mask or the gloves, maybe not the full complete outfit, but I'm suspecting that he had to put on some sort of gear. So maybe they do have some sort of information that puts him at the house at 1:47 and him leaving still at 2:28. That doesn't change the timeline of him arriving and when he's leaving. And what it does is that allows them to play with the stuff in between. So that way, if somebody does come forward, but I guess me and Steve kind of opened the lid on it. But that's the only thing I can think of. And the thing that bothers me about it is if they're doing that, that must mean there's not very much evidence left behind.
And what else would they, you know what I mean? What other things, or,
Well, they're not giving out a lot of information. They've kind of kept a lot of it close to the vest. So I think that it's and maybe the math is a little bit off. I just found it weird that two different sources or two different places, and you can recreate it. You can put the moon back in the position where it's at on the website and the whole 9 yards. And he went out and he tested it on himself. He took some pictures of himself and measured it out, and it was within, I think he said, like a 2 to 3 inch margin of error on height.
Wow.
And so if you just do it backwards. If you have the height, you can determine the time.
That is interesting.
And so that was the most recent thing that we've kind of looked into. And again, I'm not saying that this is for sure it. The math is mathing up to this. And like I said, you can still not adjust the timeline very much and still make this out there in case somebody comes forward and says it was them. Because at the end of the day, if you look at some other high profile crimes, there's been some people who have falsely confessed to them.
There really has been. The John Benet Ramsey case, there's been multiple.
Mm-hmm. And so, what do you think? How important is the timeline to you?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because investigative wise, I'm not sure. But as far as like, I don't like how that it doesn't make it look like the investigators are being honest. And that just says to me, somebody who's not in law enforcement, that just makes me think like, well, what else are you not telling me? Or what else are you, so it doesn't, for me, I don't like the whole lying thing, because so I would say, did the investigators know, are they mistaken? Or was it done on like, is it intentional? Because if it's intentional, then that just looks really shitty on them, in my opinion.
I mean,
And you have to
bring up
ask the public for help if you're going to give the wrong timeline.
yeah, and you bring up a good point, because maybe perhaps they were just wrong initially, because as soon as the pictures came out, Cash Patel put them out, right? He puts them out on the FBI, and he says, this is what we got. We got these images. And some folks, and I tend to agree with Chris on this one, where he seems like it was kind of almost like if there was some tension there between Pima County and the FBI, which it sounds like there has been. You know what I mean? It really does. And if that's the case, and there, it sounds like has been since, Cash Patel basically threw Pima County under the bus. But with that being said, it does sound like, all right, you're not putting anything out there. You're not doing anything. We are. Here's what we're doing. We did this. We found this. We only had this case for a short period of time, and look at what we did.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Sheriff Nanos was prepared for that.
I don't think he was. And I think that, in my opinion, his own ego got in the way of a lot of this.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I've he's something else.
He's something else.
Yeah. I can't. He got in trouble here recently. I think he tried to take a weapon on a plane.
What?
Yeah,
that shows entitlement, right?
Yeah.
Like, what makes you think that you have the right to take that on a plane? That's crazy. Again, did he just forget? Like, did he not realize it was, or like, does he do that intentionally? And if you do that intentionally, what does that say about the person? And for me, it's a sense of entitlement, or feeling that I'm above the law, or I could do this. You might not be able to, but I can, type thing.
100%. I can't agree even more with that. And I don't know the details surrounding it. I know there was like some body cam footage that was recently released about it. And I think the end result was that he had to go secure it in his vehicle.
Wouldn't anybody else get like in a lot of trouble for that?
Yeah.
So maybe.
Well, yeah, it depends. I mean, a gun, maybe. I mean, if you go in there and you're like, I honestly forgot, I had it.
Do we know what it was?
Maybe. It was his carry-on. I mean, it was his personal weapon.
Ooh, that is crazy. How do you just forget that you have your weapon on you?
Now, when I was in law enforcement, we had to do some time in the airport a couple of times, and we got called out there a few times. And one of the times that we got called out there was because somebody had went through TSA with ammunition, but they I guess they had it in their pockets when they went to the gun range, and then forgot they had it in their pocket, loaded up their clothing, put it in. So they called us out there, and we got called for things like that. One time somebody tried to take on like fireworks on a plane.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So my thing is, if you get caught out there for, if you've been caught out there for that, like, he's just allowed to go to his car and be like, whoops. You know what I mean? Like, was anybody called out to check that out? You know what I mean? I don't know.
I believe so. I think that's why there's body cam.
Yeah, it's like, no wonder why you feel entitled, because you kind of are if you just get to go walk it back to your car, in my opinion.
Yeah. I agree. But so going back to the doorbell camera disconnecting and stuff, if they have evidence that he's there and they have evidence that he leaves at 2:28 and that time is accurate, then I don't think it's that big of a misleading detail of when the doorbell camera disconnected.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like, how
Yeah.
does for one, that's not going to have any means on the investigation. Like, because it's not going to say that in the investigation, and that's not going to come out in court. Like, oh, why did you tell the public, detective, whatever
Mhm.
his name is? You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
defense. That's going to be it's not going to come out, and so I don't think it's a big deal. But going back to the video, this is sometime between 1:47 and 2:15. I'll still give him the benefit of the doubt and say that, even though the math is kind of mathing that it's a different time. Um, the way this guy walks up to and I have the first part in slow motion. That's just the way I downloaded it because I wanted to see the steps he was taking.
Hmm.
But the way he walks up, just kind of reading his body language, do you see somebody who's under stress, under any anxiety?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I see somebody that's like gathering information, in my opinion. So it looks like he's, you know, I feel like he's looking like he's testing not that he's testing it, but like he's going right to the camera. Like I feel like this is somebody that has already knows his surroundings. He definitely does not seem stressed to me by any means. Does he to you?
I don't think so.
He looks so comfortable right there. Like he looks like he knows like what he's going for. He looks intentional. That's the word I'm looking for. He looks intentional.
A person who's coming up here, and let's just say, what would you expect from somebody if this was maybe, let's just say, a burglary gone wrong, and the intention was not to harm or abduct somebody, but somebody to just break into the house? Would you expect their body language to be something like this as they approach? How do you expect, like, I mean, thieves aren't, not, well, they can be, but you don't typically have, like, not everybody that's a thief is like a complete narcissist, sociopath, psychopath type of thing, right? You may have some that are, but some thieves that break into houses aren't. And I would assume, because I've seen them, they're fearful even when they're breaking in, they're scared, etc.
Well, they have
Can you describe
anxiety.
that?
They have anxiety. So just because somebody, might have sociopathic behavior or narcissistic behavior, it doesn't mean that they're not feeling anxiety in the moment when they're doing their crime or when they get caught. But the thing is, it's not like anxiety, like I feel bad anxiety. There's not guilt and remorse. It's more about them getting caught or something like that. Like even if you take his mask, that already tells me that he's already thought about being identified in some way. So this is different for me than just being worried about getting caught, though. So it's about concealment. So he's worried about consequences if you get caught. You know what I mean? If somebody may see you, and if somebody sees you, they may know who you are. They may turn you in, and now there's consequences. So just wearing a mask and the gloves, and it just already shows intentionality, like I was saying before. So it doesn't look accidental. It looks like he has like a goal here.
Now, with his walk and his manner and his, I guess, lack of what appears to be fear slash stress or anxiety, it seems like you mentioned very calm. Um, could that be experience?
Oh, absolutely. So think about it. Most people, we would be like so nervous, or most people would, approaching someone's front door, especially if you're wearing a disguise, right? And you know that there might be a camera, neighbors, witnesses. But this guy here, he approaches the residents with like, he doesn't seem like he's nervous. He doesn't seem like he's, that worried. He looks like, yes, he looks like he's possibly experienced, in my opinion. I don't think this is his first time. I don't know if it's his first time, like, who knows if he took her life, whatever the case may be, allegedly. But as far as like breaking in someone's house, it does not appear like this is his first time. He's very mission oriented, I think.
And if somebody was doing this for, like, let's just say this was their first time, going in there, and maybe they had a plan for, I don't know, insurance purposes, right? Like they're like, man, we have to come up with a plan to raise money, so we're gonna, you know, harm this, older lady so that we can get an insurance claim. Those type of crimes aren't somebody that's like done that multiple times. You know what I mean? I don't foresee that being a crime that a lot of people do over and over again. Kidnapping people to make it look like they disappeared.
But
And
this is
so,
the thing, though. There's been plenty of time. So if money was the primary motive, wouldn't you expect their behaviors consistent with that?
right, but what I'm saying is, if that was the motive, then I'm expecting this to be the first time that they've done anything like this, and I'm expecting a little bit different of a behavior. For what I'm trying to say is, like, if it was the family, like Tommaso.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. What are we saying here? Because if it's not just money, because you could have somebody that wants a ransom of some sort. So we're talking more of an intimate thing then, which
Right.
well, I think that, but I think that if you're going for money, that you could still be experienced on one hand. But if you're looking at like intimate, like family violence, then yes, then that might be a first time offender.
Right. This was probably, I mean, I don't know if Tommaso has ever kidnapped anybody to make it look like they like something else so that he could get financial gain out of it. But, let's go off of the premise that he hasn't, and this would have been his first time. Would you expect him to walk up to this as calmly as he is? Because I don't think he's like a psychopath, sociopath type of guy. I mean, we saw him outside with Savannah and his wife, and they were all crying. And I mean, I guess he could fake crying if he was. I don't know if he. I don't know. That's why I
So
have you
I
on.
would I would just say though, from like a psychological type standpoint, it's hard to analyze the son-in-law. I don't know him. I've never evaluated him, so I don't have like enough information. But we can analyze the behavior that's been like reported. So I know in the beginning he was on everybody's radar. I haven't, unfortunately, I became very busy the past few weeks, so I really haven't been updated. Is he like, are people like, is he being suspected again? Maybe not by the law, but by, like, I don't know, where's that sitting?
Some people have not let go of the fact that he's possibly involved, and so I want to look at this from all angles. Either way, if some people think he is or not, I'm not entirely sure, but some people do in the comments section, and I've gotten that in the comments. Oh, I still think it's Tommaso, and so I want to break it down from every angle. And so to me, if this is Tommaso, I mean, he's fairly calm walking up to his first kidnapping that he's about to attempt. You get what I'm saying? Does that doesn't jive with what I'm seeing here?
No, but no, I agree with that.
Now, some folks have said that maybe perhaps it's because Miss Guthrie's not in the house anymore when he walks up to the doorbell.
Mm, but her
I
pacemaker doesn't stop until
exactly.
after.
Exactly. That's one of the things that like one of the theories I saw in the comment section was maybe perhaps she never made it home. When she went on the Uber to her family's house, maybe they just didn't take her back and she was already gone. Maybe that's why he's so comfortable at the camera, because something's already happened to Miss Guthrie.
Isn't there evidence? Like, isn't there a camera? They don't have her coming back in for sure.
They don't, but they have the phone and they have the pacemaker, and so that should be proof enough, in my opinion.
I agree. My other thing would be though, I'm thinking, so if it was, I'm like trying to put on my, hat of what if it was like, and again, this is all speculation allegedly. My thing would be, wouldn't you think that like he has access to the house? Like, why would he even go through all these steps? Like, didn't he drive her home?
Yeah, he did. And my thought process is you don't really need to do all this.
Right. Like, I feel like this, right, exactly. Especially not if that was like, if that's who, is somebody that you're suspecting. Now, could somebody say that he had somebody else. I mean, I guess you could go that way, but I just don't know why he would drop her off, go home, come back out, and do all of this when, like, he probably is the key or the code to the door, and he could just
So
go right in.
so there's a gosh, I forgot his name, and I wish I could pull the 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 affidavit. The guy that got arrested for trying to cash in. Remember him? The guy that
Clark,
got
not
the
Clark.
Derek. So remember there was the ransom notes that came out, and then shortly
Yes.
after that they arrested a guy in California.
Yep.
Um, well, according to his affidavit, who he contacted was Tommaso and Annie, and then he called Tommaso apparently also. And in one of the text messages, it said, "Did you get the Bitcoin yet?" And so there's two ways to read it. You know, I know you can read it from the point of the standpoint of, did you get the Bitcoin as in like they're partners, or it was just in the news by TMZ that the ransom was demanding Bitcoin, and this guy could be pretending to be the guy that's demanding the Bitcoin and now sending a message directly to them, especially after Savannah said, you know, we want to talk, reach out. So I think this guy took that opportunity and says, hey, have the Bitcoin yet?
That makes sense.
So
But so then, right,
I
but
can read
then
it
that
both
would,
ways.
yeah, you could look at it both ways. I agree with that. So I guess for me though, if I were saying like if it was a family, like, a family situation, wouldn't investigators like focus on their relationships, finances, grievances, prior conflicts, like all of those things to see if this fits? Wouldn't they also like ask questions to see if he changes his answers at some point? Like I feel like there's got to be investigative tactics that can help them really narrow that down, don't you?
I agree. I 100% agree. You know, like they took their phones. I'm assuming, you know,
Yeah,
because I strongly suspect that law enforcement suspected them at one point. But just because law enforcement suspects you at one point doesn't mean that you're the suspect forever. I mean, there's a lot of cases that we can look into where law enforcement suspected somebody early, and the evidence led them somewhere else. You know, everything from Delphi with Ron Logan and Keegan Klein that eventually led to Richard Allen, to even the Idaho case where the mayor came out initially and said that he thought this was a crime of passion, so to speak. And come to find out that wasn't the case because the evidence proved that Jack Decor wasn't there. He was at his house. And you had the white Elantra that was driving by, and then DNA from an unknown suspect on a knife sheath that was left behind by the perpetrator. So all that ended up leading to Brian Koberger. So just because they may have been suspect at one point, or maybe not even a suspect, but a person of interest, doesn't necessarily mean that that can't change. And at this point, law enforcement has said that they have cleared them. I'm going to go on that assumption that they have, but you know, I'm not going to turn my back or you know not listen to what people say, because I think if you get closed-minded, you can get yourself in trouble. And
100%.
and so I'm not going to shy away of the avenue of, all right, let's ask the question, what has to happen for the family to be involved, and does the evidence fit? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And, a lot of the evidence, though, like you were saying, how you could see that one piece of evidence both ways,
Hmm.
even things like the mask. Can't you see this both ways, though? Like, it could be somebody, I'm thinking about an offender. This could be somebody that's feared being recognized, that they could fear cameras or they want to create confusion. They may want people to think they're a stranger. Like, there's so many ways you could look at this. So, on one hand, I'm thinking, like, absolutely, this would make no sense to me. You could say that if you were a first time offender and you were trying to think about like what I would do or in this situation, I mean, one might think that this is, everything you would wear and stuff if you're doing this. But for me, I personally, I don't think that this is the son-in-law. Just like, I feel like this guy looks like he's done this before. He looks like, I mean, unless something about the son-in-law that we don't know about and he doesn't, but I don't think there is. So other than that, I mean, this for me looks like somebody who's done something like this before. I don't know if they've gotten caught, but they definitely look comfortable doing this.
I agree. And so a
And why the
couple,
full backpack and stuff? You know what I mean? I don't know.
well, that's the part that really begs a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions here, and we'll break them, some of them down one by one. I want to say welcome, Catherine Ford 4065 to the membership. Appreciate you. Thank you guys. When you become a member, you get access to our Discord. After the show, I'll drop the Discord link in the playlist. You have to be a member on YouTube, and then you can become part of the conversation on YouTube, on our Discord. So I appreciate that. So, if this was and I think this is definitely that night as well.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have questioned whether or not this might be a different night, and that we don't know which video. There's not a time or whatever. I'm definitely on the opinion that it is because of the flowers that are found or the plants that are found underneath the door. So it's definitely that night.
That's what I was going to say. When you see in the pictures the next day, those flowers that the person grabs are like dead at the front right there. So that's exactly what I was going to say. So I think it is too.
And then we're going to bring this up. I'm going to say that it's been classified by CERTIC as a wrench attack by proxy. Basically what that means, and I'm going to, what they're saying is that a wrench attack is where these, there's this organized group and they get people to go and kidnap folks or do things for Bitcoin and stuff like that. There was apparently some teenagers that kidnapped and beat up some couple that was being targeted by something like this. I had Jen Coffindaffer on it, and she believes that that's what it is. That's what she's been saying, that this was a wrench attack for some time. And CERTIC is a man. I wish I had Jen on here because she was telling me about it the other night. Basically, they're the ones who classify if, I guess, one of these are one of those type of situations, but it's not by law enforcement.
So the wrench attack or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Would that assume that?
I'm gonna bring it up so that way I can.
Yeah, I was gonna say just to be sure, but if that's what I'm thinking, isn't that like? I feel like if that's the case, that's something that I've said from the beginning was like if you knock or whatever, or if you act like, I don't know, like if you cover, is this what I'm thinking? Like if you cover the doorknob and you knock, like maybe they might think that the person broke down, or no, am I thinking the wrong thing?
No, it's different. So let me see. Here it is.
Yeah, tell me what it is, because I don't think I know exactly what it means.
Yeah, no big deal. Like, all these ads keep popping up. All right, here we go. In the digital age where information and power and security is paramount, wrench attack may sound strangely out of place, invoke images of physical violence rather than sophisticated crime, cybercrime. However, the wrench attack, also known as a rubber hose, whatever. Let me see. This is. I just want to see what it is. You don't have to. Let me get back to you.
Well, wait, it says it right there, the understanding the mechanics. It's a metaphor. Wait, if I make it bigger. Let me make this bigger so I could see. Okay, so let me just say, it says the term wrench attack is a colorful metaphor that encapsulates a straightforward but potentially devastating method of obtaining sensitive information. At its core, it involves the use of coercion, intimidation, or physical force to compel an individual to reveal secrets they would otherwise keep protected. This approach bypasses the need for technical expertise, sophisticated hacking tools, or complex algorithms. Instead, it exploits the inherent vulnerability of human beings under duress. The attack is successful when the victim, faced with the threat of harm, chooses to comply with the attacker's demands and surrender the information sought. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I think there was a situation.
Oh, there you go.
Where somebody, let's see. Yeah, I think this is actually Jennifer's.
So it's like a cyber.
Yeah, and then Nancy Guthrie case points to criminal underworld wrench attack theory. Our detective says, apparently, Abduction of Today co-host throwing a wrench into assumptions about the tools of cyber criminals, warning that with one expert warning that mastermind hackers are swapping keyboards for guns and hired kidnappers. Let's see.
Wow. Oh, the term, wait, go back up real quick. It says the term originated in 2009 in a webcomic about a frustrated hacker who suggests using a $5 wrench to beat someone until they gave up their password, she said. Wow.
Yeah, but I think there was a situation. I'm trying to remember. These kids did something to kidnap, and it was a scenario that just occurred not that long ago. If you guys know in the live chat, please let me know what we were talking about on that one.
That's so interesting.
Because there was another case that happened not too long ago. These kids, 19 and 18 years old, they kidnapped somebody, some elderly folks, and they beat them up. Look, that's the guy that called in to Tommaso and Annie and said that he had the, where's the Bitcoin at?
Look at that hair. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to get Jen back on to explain it, but
so that's interesting though. So is that more of like a cyber type thing, I guess?
Yeah, it definitely is. Like I said, there was a situation where some kids ended up I guess kidnapping a couple, and there was some cryptocurrency that was involved in that as well. And so those things kind of mirrored each other, but I'm not entirely sure this is what that is.
Wow.
And then I'll bring up what Surtech said.
Oh my God.
And Sirius.
Yeah, she did it on mine too. That was so nice.
Thank you, Sirius. We appreciate you.
She is something else. Although we also said that Sheriff, what's his name, was something else too. So maybe something else isn't the category I want Sirius Black to go in. She's amazing. How about there?
So Cuffy says a wrench attack, kidnapping is a physical abduction or an assault carried out to force someone's hand over access to their cryptocurrency or financial accounts.
Which would make sense because they're asking for cryptocurrency here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's why, Jennifer or something thinks that it could be something. So you're saying that she thinks that it could be something like that? Is that what I was?
Right. Yeah. And it was a situation where the kids were recruited by the dark web named Red and 8. The son was there and they called the police. The two kids didn't know each other. So like these two kids on the dark web were like hired basically to go and kidnap somebody. I want to find the right case.
Hey, Army Vet. I haven't seen you in a minute. People are writing all kinds of good things here.
Yeah. Here it is. Okay. Teens charged in $66 million crypto home invasion plot in Scottsdale. And this one's also in Arizona. Crypto-related home invasion in Scottsdale happened in most recent day. Nancy Guthrie was seen by her family in Tucson, about 2 hours away. 2 California teens were arrested in Arizona home invasion tied to an alleged $66 million cryptocurrency plot that happened the same day that Nancy Guthrie was last seen before disappearing from her Tucson home, about 2 hours away. Authorities have not said if the two cases are connected in any way, but cases do share some bizarre similarities. The two teens, who are not being identified by Fox Digital News because they are both under the age of 18, allegedly posed as delivery drivers to gain access in the Scottsdale home on January 31st before forcing their way inside and duct taping and assaulting two homeowners inside. The teenagers had met recently and were extorted by individuals known only as Red and 8. They were allegedly sent from California with $1,000 to purchase supplies for disguises, restraints, and burglary tools. During the home invasion, hold on. So let's go back. So they were sent for $1,000 to purchase supplies, disguises, restraints, and burglary tools. I mean, the guy did have a pretty large backpack and everything else that's described there. However, do you think, going back to the video, that this is some guy? Let me pull it up. I'm over here I thought I was reading it, showing you guys. I was just reading it out loud. My bad. Do you think this guy is a guy that is walking up who is like, could this be a guy that's hired on being forced to do this? Do you think he'd be walking up this calm?
If he was forced to do it,
Yeah, if this is
no.
like some guy on the web, somebody like uploaded a bunch of stuff that he shouldn't have, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to the cops and saying that you're a child this, unless you go and do this for us." Force his hand. Do you think he's walking up to that calm?
No, not at all.
I don't
I
think
don't
so
even know
either.
that that would even be a smart thing to do. Like if somebody was really, thinking like a criminal, like if you're an experienced criminal, why would you even want somebody who, do you know what I mean, who doesn't usually do this type of thing to even do something like that? Like that's going to get you caught more than anything else.
I agree.
That
I
just
agree.
doesn't even sound smart. But it's interesting though to think about that wrench attack thing that you were saying. My only thing with this, right, that I'm thinking is, wouldn't there be some like, wouldn't there be more evidence of it right now because it is a digital thing? Like, wouldn't you think? I don't know the answer to that. I'm just saying, like, be as like an investigator, wouldn't you think that that would leave more of a evidence trail?
It could. It definitely could. I would have thought so as well, but they haven't caught the guy who sent TMZ the information about the Bitcoin that they wanted. Now, of course, they could have just, it could have been some random Bitcoin that doesn't exist, but I think TMZ looked at it, and I think TMZ, what do you call it? I think they said it was real, that the account existed.
Hmm. Well, I don't know. This whole wrench attack thing is so interesting to me. Like the more I'm thinking about it, like I've never heard of it until tonight, but it did mention like using coercive control to get somebody to give their information. So to me, a wrench attack, a probably better term for it would be like a psychological attack, right? Because if you're using coercive control, you're using fear and intimidation to get information from somebody. So what type of person would have an interest in that? Do you know what I mean? That's where I'd be looking.
Right. Well, I mean, these other kids were recruited off the dark web, so I'm assuming that if it's force and they're either being threatened with like harm, violence towards themselves or family members,
Hmm.
or threatened with like something legally, like, hey, we're gonna put a bunch of stuff on your computer, or we put a bunch of stuff on your computer already. Police are gonna come and find this. Your life's gonna be over. Go do this.
It sounds
Yeah.
like it's hacking more of like the person instead of hacking a computer. It's like you're getting in and you're trying to find their weakest point so that you can hack them, if you will. And that's interesting. That is so interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it's weird, but and these kids did it. I'm not sold on it being that, but let's look up
Me
real
either.
quick the Surtech, because Surtech, who is Surtech?
Oh, people are saying that VPNs might make it untraceable. That's true.
I'm just gonna do a little quick search on what that is. Surtech and wrench attacks. I don't know. I'm not like, I guess here's Surtech.com. Oh, I guess they're just a company that does things
That's
to
interesting.
to protect. I get. I get what. Okay, I get what this is. So, Surtech is kind of like life. Imagine LifeLock. Like if somebody like famous, had their identity stolen and a bunch of things taken away, and then LifeLock comes in as an advertisement saying, "Hey, you don't be like this person. These are what happened. Don't lose your money like such and such." I think that's what this is, because it's saying request a quote, here are the products, solutions. So I think them identifying it as a wrench attack may not be from anything of evidentiary, out of evidence of any sort. I think this is just their interpretation because there was a ransom note and cryptocurrency
Oh, that
was
makes more sense to
requested.
me. Yeah, that makes more sense to me than it really being that. Like the fact that, you would probably look down that to even try to check it off the box, if you will, to say that it wasn't that. You would think that you would have to, but you're right. If we have cryptocurrency and stuff like that, I could see why they might say it's this, but I'm not convinced on that.
I'm not either. And so the actions or the behavior of this guy, it doesn't scream out somebody who's being forced to do this, is essentially what I'm trying to say.
Not at all.
I don't think so. And then, like I said, what comes to mind is that this guy is either he's comfortable. Now, what would make him comfortable? Do you think that is there a possibility he's already gone inside?
No, I think that it's somebody that's probably done something like this before or has prepared for it enough that they're comfortable. So they have enough, familiarity, I guess would be the word, with the scene or with the actual doing of the crime. What do you think?
I think that's most likely what it is. Now, even if, see, here's the thing, even if you've done this a couple of times, you're coming out on camera right here. You're walking up to a device that's designed to alert somebody's phone. Now, whether or not that alert's going to wake her up or not is not to be known. And I think that an experienced person would probably know that. And yet he's still walking up there nonchalant. I would assume somebody would want to be quick, move a little bit quicker than what he's moving. And he's not. This almost screams like this guy's
intentional,
but like arrogant.
Oh, for sure. Again, which would say what, that he's familiar with this in some sense, whether it be familiar with the type of crime or the health. But he definitely seems comfortable here.
Mm-hmm. And some folks, they'll say that they think he's maybe an idiot because of where he wears his gun, or he doesn't know much because he has the light, the shiny reflectors on his backpack, etc. I think that just might be what he had access to. You know what I mean? And then, second of all, he's in a place where there's not going to be a lot of light shining back out, because there's no light. There's an order for light pollution out there. You know what I'm saying? So he's not. I don't think he's really caring too much about that. And I think maybe perhaps if cops pull up on him, he's done for anyways.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I think it's more about function than it is anything else. You know what I'm saying?
I definitely, I do.
Which is kind of why when I look at the gun as well, I think the position of it and the position of the gun and the oh gosh, what is it? The position of the gun and the type of holster it is, I think that's also due to function. Because I you've heard this, right? I think he's left-handed.
Yes, and that's very interesting. Do you want to tell people why?
So I think he's left-handed, and he's
Daniel. I'll be back in 1 second. Just keep 1 second. I'll be right back. But you could tell everybody that I'll be back in 1 second.
All right. So the reason why I believe that he's left-handed is because as he's approaching, well, the first thing that I spoke with my buddy Mike, and he told me he used to be a boxer, and he's like, when you're fighting a southpaw, what you want to know is, is if everything is south, and most of them are, because not only because of the way they lean and etc., but if you're fighting somebody who's left-handed and you don't know, you'll get knocked out pretty quickly. But he said that most left-handed folks are left-bodied. Not all of them. I know there's few that are left-handed, right-footed, but this guy steps up with his left foot. He steps up with his left foot. I paused it here. As he's approaching, he approaches the left side of the door first, which there's a reef there, which if he wanted to cover, if he wanted to cover the doorbell camera, he could have easily used that big old reef thing, and it would have done a lot better job than the plants that were back there. but we'll talk more about that. And so he approaches and he blocks with his right hand, and he has his left hand lowered towards where his gun is. Now, I think that's because, you know, it's unnatural for me to do it that way, because if I needed to pull my weapon, I'm right-handed, I got to go from way up here now down here to pull the gun. And that just doesn't feel right. You typically block with the non-dominant hand, so that way you're prepared and you have that hand closest towards where the gun is. And so he then manipulates the doorbell camera with his left hand. He looks down and to the left, and then when he grabs the plants themselves, he grabs it with his left hand. And so to me, all those things kind of lead me to believe that he's left-handed. And so if he's left-handed, maybe perhaps that's why he's wearing the gun where it's at. He doesn't want to give away that he's left-handed. So he doesn't want to put a gun on the left side of him. Plus, also getting a left-handed holster, there's only a few out there. I looked in my area of San Antonio, Texas. There's like 2 million people here. And on Facebook Marketplace, I found on the used market 2 of them.
So my thing would be too, is if you're left-handed, you're only like 10% of the population. So I would think that would make it easier to try to narrow something down. But I also don't think that I would, like you were saying earlier, don't be closed-minded either. So I might keep that as a possibility, but I wouldn't rule out 90% of right-handed people either, because isn't the walkie-talkie on the right side and stuff too?
And it is. You know where I carried mine when I was a police officer?
Yeah, tell me. I don't know. I don't carry one. When you're right.
I carried it on my left.
Gotcha.
You want to know why? Because my gun was on my right.
That makes sense. But the gun here isn't, though. It's in the front.
Right. But, if he's an experienced gun user, then he's probably going to be carrying things in his that he's, you know what I mean? So if he's an experienced gun user, he's probably typically carrying the gun on his left hand. So he's probably carrying other items most commonly in his right side. So that's more common for him. So even though he changes the position of the gun, he may not change the position of the other things that are common to him, such as the radio.
Okay, that makes sense. That's fair.
Like if I'm used to my gun on my right side and my radio on my left side, and now because I don't want people to know I'm right-handed, I transition the gun to the middle. Am I also going to want to move my radio to my right side? So now I have 2 things in uncomfortable positions.
That's absolutely plausible.
You know what I mean? And absolutely. So I just don't think, I think that may be the reason why it's that way. And then the reason why I think he's using the wrong holster is because if he would have gotten a holster that was correct for the gun, for the what appears to be like a I don't know if it's a Glock or not, but Glock type handgun. Well, those holsters, typically you got to kind of twist or do something with as a safety mechanism on the gun. And so you get this cloth holster that the gun doesn't necessarily fit in there. So that way it comes out easy. That way, if you're having to pull it from an unnatural position, you can pull it out easy. Or if you had to pull it with your non-dominant hand. And so I think it's more about function and deception, the location. And I think there's also an avenue where it could also be because of fantasy as to the location of where the gun is.
That is a big one. I said that before about it being very phallic, being in the front there. No, that makes sense. I'm trying to scroll back to see what Army Vet's saying, because I seen him say that they used to do this in the Middle East, and I'm trying to see what it was that he was saying. He said, one person operating alone struggles to secure non-compliant targets, sweep a house for physical digital assets, and manage a jam perimeter for 41 minutes without the situation devolving into chaos. So I guess, Army Vet, are you saying that you think it's more than one person? Because I do not. Psychologically, I think it's one person. What do you think, Daniel?
Well, let's see.
I could be wrong. I'm just saying psychologically, but it could very well be tactically. He said yes, that's what he's saying. He thinks it's more than one person. A lot of people think that.
Let's see. How long was BTK in his houses? Because I think he was in there for a while.
Great point.
And I think he had multiple people with that he was restraining. And I think that he even had his victims assist him.
Oh, for sure he did. Absolutely he did. He would have them like, yes, absolutely.
So I don't think that the time frame and all that other stuff, you know, you have an 84-year-old woman who is mobility stricken and you're getting the surprise on her. You know, I think that in those circumstances, you know, she's not going to have the ability to go and get a phone or do any of those things. We know she's bleeding on the way out. Don't know if, you know, we assume that it looks like it's aspirated, right? Aspirated blood. And so my assumption is that it's more likely just one person. Plus, you know, if you had two people, you're probably less likely to see the blood injury because two people would be able to control her a lot easier. They'd be able to walk her out without having to assault her.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And
always thought it was one person.
and you also had the back door propped open. If you had two people, you don't need to open the back door. And if you had two people and you were propping it open so that you can carry her, then why go out the front door and leave blood?
Oh, I agree. And also, what would be the chances of people keeping it secret? Like, I always feel like it's bad enough. Like, there's like no leads here, right? So it's
Yeah.
hard enough for one person to keep a secret, right? But if they have a reason to, that, you know, they don't want to get caught doing something like this, you know, but to have multiple people keep that same secret is just so
And then
much harder.
and then if somebody disappears, let's just say, because some people say, well, maybe they killed one of them. Okay, well, now somebody else has disappeared and has been missing since the same time that Nancy Guthrie went missing, and nobody's reported it, and no officer has gone in to look at that missing person and uncover what they were doing to a certain extent to make them implicate them into the Nancy Guthrie abduction. I just don't see those dots. I see those dots being easy to connect, especially when you have resources like the FBI coming in. I think those dots should have been connected by now if that was the case.
And also, I think it's important that I will just say that the absence of evidence for a second offender isn't evidence that one doesn't exist. I just personally don't think that a second person exists.
I don't either. I strongly don't, and I think this is more fantasy, and and the fantasy doesn't always have to be sexual. It could be revenge, you know, whether
Yes,
that's
it
like
is.
hatred or something of that nature towards Savannah. But and I don't discredit or say that it's not, because we don't know. You know, we obviously don't know. I just haven't seen any evidence right now that leads me to believe that there was two people. The back door being propped open and all those other things kind of lead me to believe it's just one person. But if they came out and they said, hey, we did a black light test on the blood and we saw shoe patterns for two different footprints in blood, then I would probably be at that point, you know what, that's evidence to believe that there's two people involved in this case. But until I see that, I'm going to go off the assumption it's just one for now.
I think so too, and it's always been my opinion that this was a revenge fantasy. That's weird. Like, we definitely see this one completely eye to eye. And again, this is just my opinion, but I think it's important to remember, because then people would say, well, why not go after Savannah if it could have been something like that? But the offender doesn't always target that person. They might target somebody that they think is going to hurt them most, or it could just be that Savannah's not as easy to get to. She probably has a ton of like guards and stuff like that. So I don't think that it's crazy and I also think that it's important to remember that if it was a revenge type grievance, that it's a perceived one, because most likely Savannah has no idea who this person is. So I don't think that she has anything to do with it in that sense. And I know you don't either, but I want to say that, because somebody might say, think otherwise. But I do think that this person knows Savannah. I just don't think Savannah knows them, if that makes sense. It's like a perceived grievance. So it's not real. It's just a perception.
I agree. I was going to say, I think this person may know them, but they may not know him. Now, this is the other thing. So a lot of people were under, the thought process that when he's walking up, it's a different night. I saw something. You notice these lights in the background here?
Right.
And so when you press play and you minimize the image, those lights are still on back there. So
but could somebody say that there's somebody's like house lights or something and they're always on? I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. Like, I think it's the same.
Well, for one, there's that whole light pollution thing. So they're interior lights.
Oh.
So they're inside lights. That's the first thing. Two,
there you go. That's important.
We would have to believe, or these people would have to be folks that kept their lights on inside at this odd hour of the night on 2 different nights. Did he just get lucky that the person had the exact same lights on in the house at the at late at night on 2 different nights? It's more than
one light. So it's not even like somebody that keeps like their kitchen light on. Like if they're inside lights, then they would have to be the same 2 rooms. So I agree with that. So, good observation.
To me, because of that, because you're absolutely right. Multiple lights on in the same house, the same lights on in the same rooms. The likelihood that this guy comes and that house is rocking out on those same houses at that time of night, I think the chances are light.
So Holly says that those lights are always on that house, according to streamers who were there night after night. So that would be interesting to know, though. But I still think it was the same night, because didn't we see other things like the moon and stuff? Like there were other things other than those 2 lights that made us think before. I just haven't reviewed it in a long time.
These lights here, or these are actually reflections. All right.
How do we know that?
Because they're windows.
Okay.
So we I don't have the picture. I had Mark the Shark on, and he had a drone picture where he flew in there, turned it around, and you could see all this, and right there is a house. What do you think it's reflecting? Because there's no lights outside.
Wait, say that again. What do I think's
reflecting? Yeah, what do you think's reflecting in the windows?
I don't know. You're giving me a quiz here. I have no idea.
It's the moon.
Oh, well, that's what I was going to say. I said that. Wasn't it something with the moon? I have a really good memory. I couldn't remember exactly why, but I knew it had something to do with the moon.
Well, on January 11th, there wasn't one. I think there was like a sliver of a moon, if anything. And then on the night in question, it was a full moon. And so if you didn't have a moon, there wouldn't be anything reflecting in the light or in the window. So the moon is the moonlight is what's reflecting in the windows back there. Now, I'm not. I'd prefer to go out there and do the test myself to make sure that's what it is. But yeah, I'm fairly positive, because it's not a vehicle, because unless, I guess, he parked the exact same spot. You can see when you shrink down the image back here, we have the 2 images over top of each other. Those lights are in the exact same spot. So that's not like a car. That's not somebody waiting there. That's not that at all. That's the house, and that's the windows that are on the house.
Great point. Rubik's Cube, I have to say something real quick, because I just laughed so hard to myself. Rubik's Cube, apparently I said I have a really good memory, but I can't remember. That is so funny. What I was saying, or what I meant to say, because that does sound ridiculous, was that I couldn't remember exactly why. I just knew that there was something else. I do have a good memory, the Rubik's Cube, but that was funny. Touche. That's what I was saying. That was good. But that's why I was laughing. I wasn't laughing at the case. I was laughing as I read that comment and was like, oh my gosh, did I say that?
So these are the stuff that is the same.
Oh, look at you with the arrows.
And so those are the same on the same image in the same place. And so I suspect it's the same night.
I do too.
It begs the question then, like, how long, because these aren't the same time. I mean, I guess it could be. He could have walked up there, turned around, turned the corner, took his backpack off, took the gun, and then came back around. But that
wasn't there something? Wasn't there something about like moving the camera a little bit? I remember.
What do you mean?
Like, didn't somebody, like, people were saying something that it might have been 2 different nights, but you were saying, like, you showed how he bumps into the camera and it kind of moves it a little bit.
No, so people
Yeah.
were saying it was 2 different nights because of how dark the other image was. And what I was saying was we don't know when that image was taken as far as relative to when the camera turned on. Because when a camera turns on, especially at night when there's motion activated, and I think I have the video here without it edited out. It's where I have it backwards. No, I'll see if I can find it real quick. And basically what happens when a camera turns on is it blinks and then it loses like focus and then it focuses in. Sometimes it gets really bright, sometimes it gets really dark. And I don't know if that's in that moment when that is happening, is that the light is being activated. Here it is. You're going to see it here in a moment. When he's walking up the, I have it backwards on this one. This is the one that came out from, I think it was on Twitter or something like that. Right. It's going to be right here. Watch. Right there. You see the flash?
Mm-hmm. I did.
That flash is when the camera is activating. And so it's bright, it's dark. They had to pull layers off of this. I don't know if he's coming around the corner from this side and then it just the camera just turned on at that point. You know what I mean? And that's the image that they were able to pull off of that at that time. I do know that on the side here, there's a water sprinkler head that was broken as well. So somebody walked that way at one point.
So somebody said, could it be the light change be the bite light?
I don't think it's that bright because he puts on the that light.
Or
And
the light bright had like it could have also triggered it.
Nah, you can see him turn it on. See, it's off. I'm gonna see if I can capture it. See, it's off and then it turns on. Can I slow this down? Let me see. Playback speed. I wish I could, but there's a moment there where he's walking up and see it just turned on right there. See right there, it's off.
Yes.
And that's right before that flash.
So it's like a motion sensor?
It's a motion sensor. It's a motion light.
Wow.
And so I don't know like if this is what's happening here. So you
could say it. Look at that. Perfect.
See how bright it was and how dark it gets. So I just don't know if that's what's going on here because it's brightening up. It's getting darker. There's a lot of things that are going on here. You know, I don't know.
Either way, I would say though that like I think, I mean, would that really matter either way? Do you know what I mean? Like, what would that? Well, I guess if he was there more than once, that would definitely say something about an investigation. But for me, I think it would be all the same night, only because I'm thinking it's one offender and that it's probably a fantasy revenge type thing, in my opinion. So I don't know. I feel like that would fit more with the whole one night, but I could be wrong with that. I mean, who am I to say?
I mean, I'm not saying well, I'll put it this way. I 100% believe. Huh?
Wouldn't they have told us if it was 2 different nights?
They've said that there's no time on it and that there's no evidence that it was a different night, but they haven't confirmed nor denied, which is kind of the thing. They say basically there's no date on it. So it kind of sounds like when they talk about it, they say there's no date on it. It's almost like they're avoiding it, but also saying it's not accurate.
But wait, so I feel like when it's not something, you're just like, no.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I agree. Weird. I think there's something there that they don't want to talk about it with it.
Clearly.
But I don't know if that's it. that it was a different night.
So what would that mean? Let's say hypothetically, if it was a different night, as an investigator, what would that say to you about who you're looking for?
Well, if he's dressed like that, then he's probably going to be, that he tried to do it, he failed, and
Maybe
he
got
came.
spooked the first time.
What's that?
Maybe got spooked the first time.
Got spooked, couldn't get in. Maybe something, yeah, like you're right. Maybe something did scare him, and he felt that he needed to come back armed instead. But the problem with it is that he's wearing the same stuff. Like you can see the line right here on the sweater, same sweater, same hat. I don't know about the pants or the shoes. I know that some folks have looked at. There's this dark marking right here that doesn't appear on the on the video when he's walking up, but this is super pixelated. I don't know. Everything else is dark around him. I don't know if that's and this looks weird too because it looks like the camera's closer than what's like it's cropped also.
That would be so interesting though.
Because you don't see the the doorknob, you don't see the bottom part of the mat. So they cropped this image too. I wonder why.
I wonder why I guess, would they not know if it was from the same night? Is that what they're saying? Because why? Like, that's just shady.
See, look at how much you can see.
Look at that.
You get what I'm saying? They cropped it out.
Oh my gosh.
I wonder why. What are they hiding? Well, they're not hiding anything. They're hiding it from us. But why? Why is this so cropped out?
And I feel like by telling us that is such a clear picture. And that's not like edited at all.
No.
Wow.
Not by me, at least. I don't know where I got it from. I got all these pictures from a bunch of places. I don't remember where. A lot of them were like verified, and I got them from good places. I just don't remember where. Yeah. Some of them I just got off of Twitter.
That's so interesting.
But yeah, that's super cropped out. I wonder if there's a bigger image. Maybe the one that I found was just this way. Isn't
there usually like a date and time? Nowhere it says nest up in the right-hand corner. I feel like they're like, that's just weird to me that there's not a date and time on it, unless they took it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know why they would do that. That is so clear.
It is.
Look at his face. I don't think I've seen his face that clear. That definitely looks like a goatee of some sort, and he looks like he has on eyeliner, in my opinion. I don't know why. I'm sure he doesn't, but his eyes are very defined there. Wow. I feel like somebody looks at that picture. I feel like somebody has to know who that is.
I would hope so. I would think so. You know what? No, yeah, it doesn't. Never mind. I was like, you know what? No, this one shows more. And wow. It doesn't show more. It just shows less up here. Huh, interesting.
So interesting.
Because you can see the doorknob, the lock, the mat.
So what would be the what would be the purpose of putting out a cropped version? Like why would one do that? Because it definitely looks cropped.
I don't know. Maybe he put his backpack and his gun down, and the gun down right there. I don't know why they would crop that. I don't know.
Right?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, because if you would think like if they were trying to crop it to make it bigger, you could just zoom in somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's cropped, not zoomed in.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Right.
I don't know.
Wow.
And so going back to this guy's, I guess, behavior, so to speak. I guess we can rule out first timer. We can rule out somebody being forced, right? I don't think the behaviors are of somebody being forced.
Real quick, what you saying being forced, I was thinking of something and I just didn't want to interrupt before, but I was thinking about it when you were saying like about those teenagers or whatever. I thought about it and I'm like, they were recruited. So if they were recruited, you wouldn't just like, I feel like if I was a perpetrator and I was trying to, like, if I did put on that hat to say that it could be something like that, I feel like, I guess you would recruit a certain type of person. Like you wouldn't just recruit anybody. So I feel like you would try to find somebody vulnerable that you could use something like coercive control. So I do think that there's a distinction between they were like, you know, recruited as opposed to just any old person. And I don't think
That's a
we
good
really,
point.
you know what I mean? So like you
Now,
would have to recruit somebody that you know has a certain personality type or has a certain vulnerability that you can that you could use to get them to comply in whatever way you need them to.
right, and both of those kids were young, and young kids are vulnerable. I'm not saying that an older person couldn't be
No, but you are more likely
forced.
when you're younger.
Does this person scream to you that he's a younger person?
Oh no, I still think it's probably a revenge fantasy. Which would
Just kind
be,
of the way he's walking and bending. I don't know.
also you have to remember, if it is a fantasy type thing, even if this like the person would be thinking of this over and over and over. So like this would definitely, it's not like this would have been rehearsed in their head so many times that it would give them also a familiarity.
It's a good
It's
point.
just so interesting.
And so
So we were saying what we could rule out. So we said that it's probably not their first time.
probably
The
not
second one
forced.
was about the it had something to do with the,
Well, I would assume that the way they're acting isn't. This is probably somebody that's not like part of the family,
I
right?
agree. Yep.
I
I
mean, if
just feel
this
like
was a family member,
there's no need to do all this.
there's no need to do this. But like, let's just say there was a family member who's like, man, we got to get her out of the house somehow. There's cameras everywhere. If we open up the garage door from the outside, it's going to be alerted that it was the outside, opening first versus the inside. So somebody's going to know that somebody came in. Even at that, I don't think you need to do all this. But still, let's just say they felt the need to do this, and this is, they're doing some sort of financial crime. Does their calmness scream that this is somebody doing something like that for the first time?
No, I just feel like there's so many other ways that they could have done this as opposed to abduction. Like she was an older woman. Like I feel like if this was a fact, like I feel like there was just other opportunities or means, unfortunately, that they could have probably done as opposed to stage something like this.
Could somebody have taken something to keep them calm in a moment like this?
So, okay, I did see somebody say about being high or whatever. So this is my thing. When you're on a downer, you're less likely to do the behavior. So then you would assume then somebody might be on an upper, but he doesn't look like he's on an upper here. That's literally, in my opinion, is probably, it's just a personality characteristic. He's just not as anxious as somebody else because either, it's part of his personality type. He doesn't have that same, maybe he's, has a smaller amygdala. Now we're getting into like brain science and stuff, but there's many reasons. It could just be that he's done this many of times and has never gotten caught. Think of Brian Koberger, right? Over time, remember even the friend, like he got the mom to find out when she was going to go visit so that he could break into the house because he knew they wouldn't be home. So like he got comfortable. And the dad that said that he was looking at the mom, like eventually he got so comfortable that it was like eerie to people. So I just feel like if somebody does this over and over, you become habituated to, that anxiety. So to me, this just looks like somebody who has either, has done this before or has fantasized. I feel like this person has done this before.
There was something that was said. I can't remember the exact words from the Pima County Sheriff's Department. And it was something to the effect like they believe this was targeted, but that others could also be in danger. I can't remember exactly what was said, but that's kind of the take that I took from it, was that it was targeted, but that I don't know. I can't remember what it was exactly. I did a video on it, but to me, it kind of felt like all right, that they think there's a possibility this could be a serial offender.
100%. That's what that says to me. If that's what happened, that's 100% how I would interpret that.
Right, and maybe perhaps if he's targeted, like let's just say this is a guy who maybe he's had escalation, but his escalation is a little bit further on than we think. Maybe his escalation has been like easier targets, and I don't want to say that in a bad way, but like Maybe somebody's not have any cameras, somebody not in a wealthy neighborhood, somebody more rural, somebody that he could get in,
get away with, like,
get
even
away with
something like
easier.
a family member or a neighbor that you could be like, oh, I thought I heard this, or like something where you could get out of it if you do get caught. So I totally agree with that.
And plus the backpack, like that bothers me. Like, what does he have in it? This isn't a
A lot.
burglary. You know what I mean?
No. And when I say I think he's done this before, I don't necessarily mean like abduct somebody, but I feel like he's broken into places before. So when I say I feel like he's done this before, that's what I mean. Like, do you think he's abducted people before? Like, I feel like I don't know if I'd feel comfortable saying that, but I do feel like he's probably broken into places before.
I think he's committed fantasy type crimes, whether that's breaking in and peeping on people from inside, maybe even assaulting people, and just gotten away with it,
And this could just be like use an escalation.
an escalation, and he's gone higher and higher. I mean, he may have hurt people before. I mean, here's the thing. If there's no cameras, right, and he goes into a place and just takes somebody in the middle of the night, leaves everything behind, I mean, not everybody's going to run to this conclusion that they were abducted. The initial thought process is this guy probably or gal wandered off. And that becomes like dangerous if he's that good. Where right now, I mean, Pima County Sheriff's Department haven't been able to find him. The FBI have been all over it. And when you listen to what Cash Patel says about Pima County Sheriff's Office, it doesn't scream confidence. He's throwing them under the bus, saying, they've screwed up the investigation. They did this, they did that. That's not somebody that thinks they're going to solve this case anytime soon. That's somebody that is creating a scapegoat because he knows they ain't going to solve this case anytime soon. That's a concern. Right now, there's been a question mark whether or not Savannah Guthrie's hired PIs or stuff. I know there was a report that came out that she spent like $500,000. Some people are saying that's not true. I don't know if it is or not, but if there's a PI team that's investigating this as well, with the help of the Guthrie family, they haven't solved this either. So whoever did this is at least done something
smart enough that he's gotten away with it this far.
Exactly.
I agree with that.
And then you look at some of the things that law enforcement have done. They go and search Carlos, and they search Daly's vehicles. Two very different vehicles, although be it they're both shaped somewhat square, but two different enough vehicles where the cameras that are facing the street from residential houses, right? What are they going to capture? They're going to capture the side of the vehicles that are passing by on the street, most likely. I mean, that's most likely the view you're going to get. Carlos's truck had a big insignia on the side of it, and no windows. Daly had a Range Rover where my Range Rover, I'd have to go look at his, but mine had some pretty big windows on the side that were dark, and it looked like half of it was black and half of it was white. And so I don't think if you're looking at a camera of a side profile that you're going to be able to confuse those two. And I struggle that, you're going to get a warrant to search that van like that. If all with that insignia on the side of it. So I don't think they have a picture of the vehicle is what I'm trying to say.
No, I don't either. Do you think that this guy, because I keep thinking about when you said about how they said that they think this was targeted, but that other people could be in danger. Do you think he's done this again since, or do you think he's like laying low?
I don't know.
I wonder if like somebody gets not spooked, but like lays low after this, because I don't know. Or my thing would be though, if it's if it's an escalation, I don't know. There's been serial, like you were talking about BTK and stuff, like there's been some that have gone years in between. So I guess that, I don't know. I don't know what I think about that, but that would be interesting to see, Well, and they have DNA, don't they?
They have some DNA of a bunch of stuff. So I don't even know. Here's the thing. Based on what they were saying about the DNA that has gone to a couple of different labs, etc., my biggest worry was always that they don't have anything like a K-bar knife that was left behind, a K-bar knife sheath that was left behind by the perpetrator, and they have DNA on it that they know belongs to the perp. What I think is that they swabbed a bunch of different places, and they have unknown DNA in some places. Now, does that mean that it belonged to the perpetrator? Maybe, maybe not. You know, Miss Guthrie got into an Uber. How many people were in that Uber before her? You get what I'm saying? Like, how many people's DNA does she have on her person
I
that
see what
she's
you're saying.
transferred back and forth? And so there could be the fact that it sounds like all the DNA samples they have is like a huge mixture means that they don't have anything that single source that they can point that that person was in the house. And so what they're doing is that they're hoping that one of these DNA mixtures that they're going to eventually find a profile and that guy's not going to have an answer. And when they look at his alibi, he's not going to have one. But the longer this takes, that's going to be harder to prove. Because let's just say you come up with a name in a couple of years and that name is in a different town, right? Oh man, that looks promising, right? But now you can't go and look at the cameras to see if he left because those things have been recorded over. You know, there's so many things now. I mean, somebody could easily bring up like that one dude who was arrested for murder because his DNA was under the fingernails of a victim, and it ended up being because the same paramedic treated him as the person that treated the dead person earlier the day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, some of that nature. So it was crazy. But in the Brian Koberger case, they found him fast enough that they still had surveillance. They did preservation orders in some places, and he did his crime close enough that they were able to do those preservation orders in those cities.
Hmm.
If Brian Koberger committed that crime hours away, they may not have done a preservation order in Pullman. You get what I'm saying? And so, based on those things, I don't think they have a lot.
No, I don't either, and that's a real misfortune.
And that screams also experience. I mean,
Yeah,
also
100%.
law enforcement kind of screwed the pooch a lot. Like,
Yeah, I feel like even if you look at the front door, this is just my opinion, but I so feel like they didn't even realize about the front door until Brian and said something the next day in the press conference. I feel like they were kind of like, wait, the front door, the blood, so I feel like I do agree. I don't think that they did as good as a job as they could have.
I agree. However, even if they didn't do it right away, the FBI have solved cases, right?
Sure.
They don't get involved right away. They're not the responding party. They get called in days later, etc. FBI has been involved in this case long enough that we should, I would say, have an answer if there was one to get at this point.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so I struggle, and for somebody to do that and to be able to complete something like this takes a lot of planning, a lot of forethought, even planning for things when they go wrong, because things went wrong here. Criminals entry exit point is usually the same. The back door being left open, I think that says something. And
do we know if that was open, like for sure, from the inside or outside?
You can see it from the outside.
Okay.
But
do they know if it was like, I'm just asking, could somebody have gone in through the front door and opened it that way? Or do we know that it was open from the outside? I don't even know if there's a way to tell.
Oh, if somebody, I don't know if you can tell. I just know that they were propped open. But I would assume like again, like if you went in through the front door and most criminals, the exit point and entry point is the same, then there would have never been a purpose to prop open the back door. You know what I'm saying? So the propping open of the back door tells me that he made entry that way and initially planned to exit that way. Again, you wouldn't leave the doors propped open using a tool to prop it open. It'd be different if you just left the door open, like Brian Koberger slid the door open. It didn't, he just left it there. In this scenario, he had to use something to keep it open. and he
Which
put a
would make
pot
me
there
think that he would be going back out
out the
that
same
way.
way. Yeah, that was his plan to go out that way. And so the blood and everything else tells me that there was a change of plans, things of that nature. So I think he planned for some stuff, and even when things didn't go right, he still has managed to get away with it to this
It's so
point.
interesting.
Now, will he always get away with it? I hope not. You know, I think eventually they'll find something. Maybe the DNA, they'll find that one little piece that they swabbed, and you know, it's just going to take a while. And that's why I think Sheriff Nano says years. It's probably because they have to build multiple trees to figure out, and rule out people, because I mean they might have a piece of DNA, right? They go and do this whole genetic tree and everything else, and then come to find out that person also took the Uber ride just before Nancy got in the vehicle. Well, then you got to scratch him off if he has an alibi. You know what I mean?
So, speaking of scratching people off, people are going back and forth in our chats. Have the family been cleared? People are saying that the family's been cleared.
Yeah, they have been cleared by Pima County.
So then we have to take that into consideration too, right?
Yeah, but and some people will say, well, the FBI didn't clear him. I was like, well, so FBI is not lead investigator. The lead investigator is Pima County.
Yeah, I think we have to keep that in consideration.
It's kind of like in the Idaho case. The Idaho State Police never went out there and officially said that anybody else was cleared. Moscow Police did. Why? Because Moscow Police were the investigating department. That's their job.
What is the possibility? Like, is there a possibility that like would you clear the family, and then like what are the chances that the FBI wouldn't clear the family after that?
The FBI is following Pima County's lead.
Gotcha. So they wouldn't like go above them.
I mean, they could have their own investigation and stuff like that. Like I think in Delphi, that was one of the issues that was going on, is that Ron Logan was essentially not looked at as a suspect, and some members of the FBI thought he was. And what the sheriff's department did in that case was said, all right, if you continue to, go down these avenues, then you're not needed. And they kicked him off the case.
Wow.
But in that situation, they had absolutely nothing. And in the end, it obviously wasn't Ron Logan. You know what I mean?
Do you think that this is it's been what, like 133 days missing or something? Do you think that it's a cold case? Like, do you think it's going to be solved?
I hope so.
I hope so too. But what I feel like the more days that go by, the more I worry about it being solved.
Yeah. But like I said, I've never heard, I'm going back to the FBI clearing. I've never heard of a situation where the investigating department like clears somebody. I mean, outside of Delphi, I guess. And the
Yeah,
FBI,
that was my question. That makes sense though, right? Like if you're going to clear them, I don't know why the FBI would go above that unless they had like some evidence, but I feel like we might have known that already.
Right. I've never seen that where the FBI is like, no, we've cleared, but they haven't.
No, that's good to know.
But there's so much, like it is so unlikely that it's the family. I don't see how law enforcement would have a problem. Like, I've heard some folks say, well, if this happened or that happened, I'm like, well, if those things happen, those are easy things to prove. If Tommaso lied and said, like, for instance, all right, I dropped her off at 9:00 and he really didn't. Well, that's easy to prove. You have both cell phones from Tommaso and Nancy Guthrie. Nancy Guthrie's phone was left behind. So, all right, you have her phone that's attached to the pacemaker. There's footsteps that are being taken. There's distance between the phones. You're going to be able to see Tommaso's vehicle from the GPS data and everything else that comes with it. And you're also going to see his movement correlated with his cell phone, travel with Nancy Guthrie's phone back to her house. Now, we may not have video or evidence of them walking in together, but that phone's going to tell us if he took it down with him off the vehicle. If he had it in his pocket and he gets there and he's helping her out and he's helping her get into the house, you're going to see both phones travel from the vehicle parked in the garage into the house, and her phone stay there. You're probably going to still see some movement there, her getting in bed, etc. But you're also going to have the pacemaker that's going to be putting her there at the house, and his phone leaving the house. So that's an easy thing to determine right then and there. And then you also have, you know, if they were doing this for some sort of like financial means, I think some folks are saying that, well, maybe they were trying to get rid of her for um, you know, insurance purposes. The blood outside is an indication that that's not the case, because if that was the case, all he had to do is, even if he went in there with a mask, just so that he doesn't get seen outside, he takes the camera off, then he goes in. What's the point of continuing the disguise? Just take the disguise off, walk into a room and say, hey, something happened to Annie, we need to go, let's go. And she's going to go with you. You're not going to have to fight her. You're not going to have the blood. You're not going to have any of those situations. You're going to have her willingly go with you. You don't have to keep the back door propped open. You don't have to do any of those things. And then you get in the car, you take her wherever it is you're going to take her, and you go from there. It just doesn't make sense to, the blood tells me that, especially at the location where it was at, it was the, leaving the house. That was a resisting issue. She resisted there. Why would she resist her family?
She wouldn't.
You get what I'm saying? And so it would be very dumb, if they try to, all right, we got you. We're going to kidnap you and we're going to do something to you, like at that moment of the door. And if they were that dumb to say something like that, they would have gotten caught a long time ago. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? I don't get the scenario that happens there. Now, some people are saying, well, maybe they hired somebody. Well, they took their phones and they took a lot of things and their financial records. You know how one of the ways Rex Heuermann got nailed was they took his financial records and they found where he purchased the burner phones that he utilized to torture his victims' family members when he would call them and say things about their family, about the loved one that he killed. If they were in communication, if they had burner phones, if they had something, there's going to be some sort of, paper trail. Even if what you're doing is like, all right, well, they had to go, maybe they went and bought something cash. Well, that's how old boy bought it cash. What they did was they looked at his ATM records, followed the cameras, and there was a lot of things that go down. It's not difficult to find, if there's something like that. And I just think there's a lot of other avenues that are a lot easier to do if it's the family. You get what I'm saying?
I totally agree with that. I feel like you would have known already. There would have been something, like you said, there would have been something digital.
Right. And I don't think you would have cleared them if Pima County really thought that they had something.
I do agree with that. And I think that there was a lot, because didn't it get to mainstream media people and stuff? So I think that they felt like they had to say something because people were suspecting him. And I think even Savannah, when they walked out, her sister and the brother-in-law, arm in arm, I think they were trying to tell people, stop saying that. We don't think that it's somebody in the family.
And again, so this one comes up, why impound her vehicle for 40 days, take night pictures, revisit? Because you can suspect somebody, but when you do those things and the outcome comes out that they didn't do anything, you clear them. That's how you clear them. I'm glad that they did those things. But now that they've been cleared, what does that tell us about those things? We can't just look at the problem and not the answer, or the question and not the answer. We look at the question. They impounded their vehicle for 40 days and took pictures of their house and they did all these things. Okay. What was the result? The result matters, in my opinion. And I'm assuming the result was that they found nothing that leads them to believe that this is the guy. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's like saying, all right, if they brought me in for DNA testing on a crime, and then somebody's saying, hey, well, based off the DNA, we were able to clear Daniel. But yet you still want to argue that they brought me in for DNA testing and not argue the fact or not look at the answer of the DNA test, which was that I was cleared because it wasn't the DNA didn't match. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
We
if
can't.
anything, like you're saying, it would make it, if anything, it would make, for me, even validate more that you're not involved because, or that I would think that like they did a
Exactly.
good job because they're investigating that. So you would hope that they would get that so that they could either rule out or rule something in.
Exactly. That's they they passed the test. You know, it's like if I pulled somebody over and they smelled like alcohol, and I ask them, "Why do you smell like alcohol?" "Oh, my friend got drunk. I'm the DD, and they spilled the beer on me, but I haven't been drinking." And I go, "You know what? I'm gonna pull you out, and I'm gonna do the standardized field sobriety test." They passed them. They passed them all. I do a breathalyzer just to check. Zeros. Am I still supposed to arrest them because my initial thought they were drunk and they smelled like it? You,
No, not at all.
you get what I'm saying?
I totally agree. I think that for me at least, I don't think the family, I never really thought that it was, but I think like you said, like, and the FBI aren't, they're it's not like they're coming out saying, so and if there is, I don't know that we know this to be 100% true, but if there is friction between Pima County and the FBI, you would think that the FBI is like, maybe not double checking. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm sure that if they had any evidence that it might have been someone in the family, that they would have said something. So I do agree that they probably, are on that
Well,
same page.
the other thing is too, if they had a suspect, even if it was the family, if they had a suspect, I don't think Cash Patel's going out there saying, if we don't solve this, it's because of Sheriff Nanos. You know what I'm saying? The behavior that they've had as far as Cash Patel using the Pima County Sheriff's Department as a scapegoat as to why they haven't solved this case doesn't spell confidence that they have a person of interest in mind
Mm-mm.
at all. And so, some people are saying the FBI hasn't cleared them. Has the FBI named them suspects? Has the FBI named them persons of interest? And based on their behavior of what they've said, do you think they've have anybody at this point who's a person of interest?
No, and that sucks.
It does.
I think for me, that's like one of the hardest things for the family, a family in this situation, because this is what we would call like an ambiguous loss. So the person's like physically absent, but psychologically they're still present because there isn't that closure. So there's like no certainty yet, no clear ending to the story. So, I mean, that makes it suck 10 times worse, in my opinion, because now it's like Savannah even said, they don't expect that she's still alive, but you still don't know because you don't know where she is. So there's just no closure at all. And like I said, so they're physically not there, but psychologically they kind of are because you have no closure.
Yeah,
So that sucks.
it does. I feel so bad for the family, and then even more so, for like those that are being accused. Again, I don't know, and I'm not going to tell anybody, oh, you're a bad person for thinking that, or whatever the case. I
No.
mean, you know um police were investigating them. I just, me, and from what I know from law enforcement investigations, and what I know as far as um based on the evidence and the cooperation that they've had, what you should have found, I struggle to believe that they would have been able to. It'd be different if they lawyered up and they were uncooperative. They didn't turn over their phone. They didn't give up their car. You know what I'm saying? Then I'd be like, you know what? Their behavior plus some of these other things that are going on match the evidence. Then at that point, I might be more a little bit open to the possibility that the family might have something to do with it. But that hasn't happened yet. And I'm not the type of person to blame somebody without evidence.
I agree.
Let's see. And so, last couple of things I want to ask you. If this is a, well, let me put it this way. If this was a offender like BTK, Zodiac, Brian Koberger, would their actions of the way they approach, would that fit, in your opinion? Does that fit a little bit more so than some of the other options that we spoke about? Maybe the experience as far as a perpetrator, but would a narcissist, a psychopath, even if this is their first time approaching, could this behavior fit that type of person?
Okay, so I would say, I guess what you're saying is, could this be like a serial offender in this way? Is
Well,
that what you?
let's just say, could Brian Koberger, we assume that Brian Koberger, he was one and done. You know, that was his first one. He may have planned others. He may have intended to do others, you know, after the fact, but actually going into a house and taking the life of somebody, that was his first time. You know, it seems like, based on the fact that he left little to no evidence behind in that case as well, outside of the knife sheath, that's what really did him in. If he hadn't left it behind, I think law enforcement would have been in trouble in that case. And so knowing that, and that being possibly his first time, and how much of a sociopath and psychopath he was, do you think like his movement and behavior would have been more similar to this, even though it was his first time, somebody controlled, somebody maybe appear to be calm? Or do you think he still would have shown some of those like nervous tics, movements, and things of that nature?
So this is what I would say. Although it looks like his behavior suggests planning, planning alone doesn't tell us whether it was a first offense or if this was, somebody that would do this repeated. Although I do think that this is probably something that has either been really planned or done before. I will say this, we can't really say for sure, because even if you look at serial offenders, although there's like similarities in like personality traits, their crimes aren't always similar. So, but the things that I'd be looking for to see if it was somebody in that same type of category would be the repeated offending over time, which we just don't know yet. If we ever do find that out, I would look for things like similar victim selection, because usually somebody that is a serial offender, like, and when I say serial offender, just in general, like if we're talking about a BTK or a Brian Cope or something like that, there's usually a similar victim selection. So they usually have like a prototype, if you will, of who it is that they're going after. So you would expect that same thing. You would also expect a similar motive, similar geographic patterns. For me, there's evidence of like fantasy driven behavior, which means that we're probably looking at an escalation across incidents. So I think that there's many things that we could be looking at. I do think that one of the things that we could say, or one of the reasons that it might look towards somebody that might have experience, is the disguise, the apparent planning, the willingness to approach the residents with such little anxiety, possible surveillance behavior. But I mean, you really can't say for sure, I do think this probably has been done on some level. This is probably an escalation of some sort, but I'm sure that this person has done something along the way that is making him less anxious about it at this point. And that could even have something to do with someone's personality, right? So,
yeah, I mean, yes, but my question is more so like, if this was a psychopath or a sociopath, would you see a similar, like, would they exhibit anxiety, stress, and those type of behaviors as a normal person that doesn't suffer from those type of, psychosis?
Oh, so they would have a different pattern of behavior, if you will, and even the things that they would feel. So what stands out to me isn't whether this offender is a psychopath. What stands out is the apparent willingness to place their own objective above other human safety and well-being. So that's the part that catches my attention. A psychopath is absolutely one of the possible explanation for this behavior, but it's also this callous behaviors. All right, let me say that again. Psychopathy is one of the possible explanations of callous behavior, but callous behavior is not proof of psychopathy. So I think we really need to, again, you can't really say if you don't know the person. I do think I don't think that you're finding somebody that doesn't have psychopathy that's doing this. And you also have to remember, when it comes to emotions, somebody that is a psychopath, they don't feel remorse and guilt like you and I do, so they're less likely to like tell them themselves and things, because they can rationalize it. If you think about even BTK, he got away with it for decades because he didn't feel the need to tell anybody about it. He was able to keep that fantasy driven, and he was able to keep that, why would you tell somebody, then you'll get caught. So,
well, he did. He told the media.
right, but I meant like in his life that could have caught him. That's because, in my opinion, he was just he was arrogant. And
well, here's the thing. I don't know if you know this, but Jennifer Coffindaffer, she mentioned that the ransom notes that went out in this case
would be
to
arrogant.
the media actually started the day after the disappearance. So TMZ got theirs 3 days after, but the local news media got theirs now the next day and the day after. That wasn't enough. He then sent it to TMZ after the fact. And then, so if we take it from that perspective, and so, because me, I thought, you know what, they had 3 days, they could have found some information, they could have found some evidence or whatever, right? Like, not evidence, but like pictures of the house or whatever it is that they used in the ransom letters or emails or whatever it was, that would have made law enforcement and Savannah Guthrie believe that they were authentic to a certain extent, right? Because that's what TMZ said, and that's what Savannah Guthrie said, is that they thought that the first 2 emails, that those were legit from the abductor. And so I had questioned, why wait 3 days? Apparently they didn't. They went right away. It was the next day that they reached out. Those places didn't even announce it. They didn't say that they got it. They didn't do anything. And then it goes to TMZ. TMZ doesn't say everything that's in the email, just that they got it and that there's this and there's that, right? They talk briefly about it, but it's not something that's like it's not like a lot of stuff. So it's just a few things. They don't air it out. And then when they don't air it out, they don't talk about it anymore. Now, some people say that, well, that's because Savannah said that there was, they wanted proof of life and maybe didn't have it. Yeah, but Savannah's paid a lot of money for a lot of different things. And they've also put up a lot of money for a reward here for information. And so they're not necessarily thinking that information is going to lead back to Nancy Guthrie being brought back alive. So you have an avenue there with information to still extort money out of the Guthrie family. So to me, I just reaching out to the media, BTK reached out to the media, Zodiac reached out to the media. Those were things that were kind of like arrogant. And by the way, BTK's first one that he did, he spent several hours in that home, and he forced the children to watch their parents, lose their life. And then he took photos, and then he even did some pretty crazy things to himself before leaving the scene. And so 41 minutes by himself in there, this perpetrator, I don't know.
So all of that is great points. I guess when it comes to all of it, though, I guess what I would say is that the behavior here definitely suggests callousness and planning, a willingness to prioritize your own goals and your own motives over another person's well-being. This is all things that you would see with psychopathy and narcissism and stuff like that. But the thing is that it could also be, that could be one of the explanations, but it could also be something that is revenge motivated, obsessive type offender, coercive controller, financially motivated criminal. So I do think that individuals, that this person probably will fit that description of psychopathy, but we can't say that they definitely will, because there are other explanations, and I wouldn't want to just pinpoint or push this person. Like, I don't feel as comfortable with that yet, because I don't know enough about this offender as I do about saying that about Brian Koberger. We know, and I've looked at his whole past history, as from his song to his Tappa Talks, all those things, which just gives me a better understanding of who he is, which makes me more comfortable saying that. With this person, we just don't know yet. I can surmise that we're probably going to see that, but I can't say for sure because we just don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we definitely don't. Hopefully we find out something soon.
I hope.
For the victim's family members' sake.
So they can get closure.
I agree. When they find this person, Do you think people are going to be surprised?
No, we usually aren't ever surprised. No, I don't think so.
I
At least
wouldn't.
not people like you or me, I don't think, or people like here like that are, into true crime. I mean, there might be people in the general public that are like, oh wow. But as far as like, no, I don't think we'll be surprised. Just like I don't think we were surprised at a Brian Koberger type thing once he was exposed either.
I think we are.
What's going to be surprised?
I think we are. It's going to be
What do you mean
somebody.
by that though? Like, what do you? Because to me,
It's going to be somebody that nobody knows. That
okay, well,
has.
that wouldn't be a surprise then.
Well,
That's what I'm saying. So I don't know if you're just like, for me, psychologically, I feel like there's
I didn't say a surprise. I said, are people going to be surprised? I think people are going to be
Oh, you mean like the
surprised
people in that person's life that they didn't realize it was him?
in general, like and people watching and
Yeah,
stuff.
that I thought you meant more like, are we going to be like, oh my God, I
I
think
think people
I
are.
was hearing it wrong. But
Be-
could the people in their life absolutely look at Brian Koberger, his family, like they
Well, not
couldn't
necessarily
believe
that. I'm talking about like general public, everybody. And the reason why I'm saying that is I think that we're going to be surprised that this is going to be somebody that most people didn't
like a
expect.
BTK, like somebody who's like because with BTK, you guys, you have to remember, and this is true of a lot of people with psychopathy, they'll pick certain fields and stuff like that. Like if you look at BTK, he was a bodyguard at the church, and he was a big member of his church. Like, all is that what you mean? Like everything behind him, you would be like, oh, it's not that guy, and then here you're like, oh wow, is that what you mean by surprised?
I think we're going to find out this guy's fairly intelligent. I think we're going to find out that this guy is he's probably a loner, but he's probably got or has had a career, a profession, and I think that this guy's probably going to surprise some people. People in his life, the Guthrie family, they're going to be like, we don't know who this is.
I
That
think I
type of
was reading.
surprise.
I think I was taking you the complete opposite. I thought you meant surprised, like we know who this is. I
Oh,
agree
gotcha.
with you. No, I agree with you in the other way. I was interpreting what you were saying the opposite way.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be a lot of surprises when it comes to this. Not one that, to me, I'm not going to be surprised to the extent of like the information that comes out that this is going to be somebody of intelligence. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy is like some sort of tech guy, something of that nature, and we'll find out. We'll find out once this guy does get caught.
Even somebody who has like some form of not necessarily law enforcement background, but like how BTK was a bodyguard, or like BK was in the not the ROTC, whatever that program was. But so maybe somebody that is interested in this type of thing, that wouldn't surprise me. There's going to be a lot of surprises. I agree. I am curious to see who this person is in the end, and so that we could then, because the whole point of this for me is once we find the offender, we then put all of their, for me at least, their behaviors and their characteristics in my thought process, so that in the next time you could use all of those things as experiences and information to make better predictions going forward, and to try to stop some of these things if you see them in your real life.
Yeah. Steve comes in saying he wasn't rushed while in front of the camera. That's true. I doubt he ever felt rushed while at the residence, as we have no evidence of mistakes. The only mistake evidence I think we have is the fact that maybe he underestimated her mobility, had to change plans to get her outside of the front. But I think that with that kind of scream like experience, because there was a change of plans. He went from going out to the back, out the front. There was, an incident that occurred that created the injury. And in my opinion, when you have those things, there's nothing that caught him from that. So he was able to adapt and change in those and think of maybe perhaps the front doorbell camera's still there, or the flowers maybe not be enough if he has to move his car. He didn't make the stupid mistake. So, now will we find other mistakes he made? Yeah, there's no such thing as a perfect crime. Like Brian Koberger, he made a lot of mistakes. He took his own vehicle, he turned his phone on, but those weren't the things that caught him. It was the knife sheath that caught him, right? And so if the knife sheath wasn't there, he still would have taken his own car, still would have turned his phone on and all these other things, and he may have never gotten caught.
Right, which says to me that I'm so glad you just said that. So I guess because that's making like sparking something else in my head. I guess you can say, I keep saying I feel like this person has experience, but at the same time, this person could also have just been very prepared, and they're not the same thing. So with Brian Koberger, I think you could say, he's experienced in that sense and that he's broken into people's homes, things like that. But at the same time, he was also prepared. So he thought about the car. He thought about all these other things, even though he messed up and he wasn't smarter than everybody else, but he thought he was. So his perception was that that he thought of everything. But some of those things are the things that wind up getting caught in the end, like having your phone off just at that time and then turning it back on and you're in the middle of nowhere coming home. So there were a lot of things that get him caught in the end. Same thing with BTK. He literally asked the cops, if I send this to you, if I email this, will you be able to trace it to me? And they're like, no. So then he sends it and they trace it to him. So just so it was something stupid. He thought of all these things that makes him get away with it for decades. And then, it winds up being something usually that has to do with your ego that winds up tripping them up.
And I think that's what we'll find out. This guy's going to get comfortable eventually if he's not already there.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
The last thing I'll ask you, do you think this guy's following the case?
Yes, of course I do. Don't you?
I would assume so. Brian Koberger followed it.
Absolutely. I think that would be, I would be surprised if he didn't.
What do you think he's thinking about when people think it's something that's not accurate?
Oh, just like Koberger, he was probably jumping out of his skin. And we even seen that there's evidence of things like, and I know that this is conspiracy a little bit, but I still think he was Papa Rogers. So, but even things like that, where somebody might take on a different, somebody as in the public so that they could correct them. You never know. There could be somebody, your big channel, somebody could be in your chat watching your shows to see, to keep on top of things or to see what people are thinking or how, onto you they are. Or it could even be on the other sense of getting excited about seeing people not being able to figure out who you are. So there's multiple reasons you might look into this.
What about people saying it's somebody else? Do you think that for an arrogant person, for a narcissistic person, giving somebody else credit, do you think that bothers them, or do you
Absolutely.
think they like it because it's not giving them away?
So for me, I think, I'm sure it's a bit of both, right? In a sense, it's like, okay, you're not on to me, so I feel like I am smarter than you type thing. I am the smartest person in the room. But at the same time, you're getting away with it. So that might be an identity that you want to align yourself with, as somebody that was smart enough to get away with it this long. But again, that's where ego usually trips people up, because they can't balance the two. It's like, in one sense, you're able to remain quiet, on another sense. So that might be some of the things that I would do to try to, if strategically, maybe if you were onto somebody, trying to put things out there that would go against something like that, to see if they would say something, but you would have to have a suspect to do that. But absolutely, I think that would bother somebody, especially if they haven't been caught yet, because I would assume that if you're a criminal, you'd want to be a good one. And to them, I'm not saying there's a good criminal, so I don't want anybody to misinterpret what I meant. I mean, in that person's head, I haven't gotten caught, so I'm obviously good at this, or I'm smarter than you are because the FBI is on this case and they haven't even figured out who I am, type thing.
Very true.
I think that they would want to correct it, wouldn't you?
I don't know if they would want to correct it, but I think that it probably irritates them.
It would bother them.
I think it bothers them more than anything else. And I think maybe that has to do with why the ransom notes went out to a certain extent, to correct the narrative that this wasn't, this was a kid that, somebody went in the house and took her. Maybe it wasn't so much for ransom, but it wasn't, family members. It wasn't, some random idiot. This is.
And we're also not sure that he meant that, if something, we're not sure that something didn't go wrong, right? So he could have had one plan and then something else occurs. And if anything, that would probably make him feel even more powerful that something unexpected occurred and he still didn't get caught, type thing. And again, that doesn't mean he's not going to get caught. But in his head, like you were saying, I would expect this person to become more confident or comfortable in that. And then hopefully they'll trip up. We need to know where she is so that they could put, so that they could start getting some closure for this family.
Yeah. Do you think, and this is again the last one.
Well, you're fine.
um, this person seems like, in my opinion, to commit a crime like this, and there's an aspect of control here. I would assume that that would probably entail that he is still like not necessarily in possession, but in possession of like Nancy and stuff. Like for instance, a lot of people thought that Brian Koberger threw the knife in the river, and I was like, man, I don't think he'd lose control like that over the murder weapon. I think he buried it. Um, do you think he's done something like that, like with Nancy, or do you think he would dispose of her in a place where he can't get back to?
Well, that's a good question. The disposing of the person, I think that's more of an investigative question. The control thing has my like ding, 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 because that's more of a psychological thing. So for control, that's more of I want power over someone, but it could also mean I don't want anything unpredictable happening. So I think we need to look at, so I don't know that, like, what would you say investigatively? I feel like that first part was a little bit more of an investigative question, where the control part is more of the psychological thing, because I do think that there is an aspect of control here for sure.
Well, I think it depends on the person. You know, if you have a person that went in there was trying to commit a robbery and it went bad, then he's probably just trying to get rid of all the evidence. And so he may dispose of the body somewhere where, in a river or, on an empty field somewhere, not planned or anything like that. But given this, the planning of this and the sophistication, I would guesstimate that he probably had something planned of what he was going to do with her after the fact. And I think that there's probably some sort of control in that plan,
100%.
like location, type of, disposal, those type of things where, people keep souvenirs and things of that nature. I would say that there's a lot of that going on in this, probably.
Absolutely. And I would say this, and this is just my own thought process. This isn't necessarily, but I would pose this to people. For me, the opposite of like fear isn't courage, it's control. So when I look at this behavior, what's really standing out to me isn't necessarily about the recklessness. It's more about an effort to control as many variables as possible. So when one of those things becomes out of control, that would be bothersome. I think there's a huge control aspect here, in my opinion.
Mhm. I agree. And I'm going to answer this one. Katie Girls says, do you mean that he meant to keep her alive and it was accidental? I mean, not necessarily that. I mean, he could have. The plan could have been to keep her alive for a little bit, even if it was like, a ransom gone wrong, kidnapping gone wrong for ransom, and she passes away. If that's the case, then or that single person is probably going to dispose of the body and the evidence as quickly and
I
as
would I
abruptly as
would
possible.
I would add to that too when it comes to control. Like you would probably want to hold on to her, not you know, have her pass type thing, especially at first, because if this was something like a revenge fantasy type thing, by having her alive, if, and this is just if, but like if their goal was to hurt Savannah, and again, I don't think Savannah knows who this person is. I think this person might know who she is, but I don't think it's the opposite. That would give you the most control, right? Like I still have what's precious to you. And so, in other words, if he just went in, and I think if he had planned to kill her, he would have had a different plan. Like, I don't know why you would then take her and all the other things. So I don't know that that part was planned. Again, that's more of an investigative thing. What do you think about that? Do you think he planned to go in there and kill her? Or do you think we just really can't, we really just don't know yet?
No, I don't think he planned to take her alive there. I think he planned to take her from there. You know what I mean? The only thing that would probably make me think that maybe that's wrong is if something seriously went wrong and like she scratched him or something, and now he felt the need to remove her from the place.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Steve asks, do you think he kept trophies, pictures, etc.? Well, he kept her. Is
That you couldn't have said that any better, right?
yeah.
And he's keeping the secret now of who he is and where she's at and all those other things, which also puts him back at control.
Yeah. And I think that with that being said, he probably did keep some stuff like closer. It's just crazy.
Crazy. They can't help themselves.
No, they can't. Let's see. I thought
Hopefully that's what gets him caught, though, is his ego.
Why would he need to go near the front door and all that if he entered the rear doorway? That's the thing I've been saying, and my point has been that I've always felt like his approach seemed theatrical. His approach to the doorway, looking down, the way he was stepping, the way he was walking. It was almost like I don't know, it just seemed weird to me. And so if his approach was one that was theatrical, I feel like he wanted to be seen. Now, why does he want to be seen? Maybe perhaps he doesn't want people to think that she just wandered off. I don't think he intended on the blood situation. Sorry about that, guys. I don't think he intended that the injury to happen, out the front door. And so I think that maybe perhaps there was a possibility that people may have thought that she just wandered off, and he wanted people to know that that wasn't the case. Maybe that's also why he did the whole ransom note thing. Is that he wanted?
It could be why he took the ring camera, right? Because he might have thought that if they didn't have the ring camera, they might not have seen the whole incident, or not ring, but the Nest camera.
Well, yes, but I think that I don't think he was intending on taking the Nest camera at first. I think he was intending on leaving it. That's why he's putting the flowers on top of it. You know what I mean?
Weird that he did that too.
Yeah, I mean, even if he was just trying to obstruct the view, he was still intending on leaving it there, which is weird. You know what I mean? Now, I think that wasn't the case. I think he was trying to put some flowers there so that way he could, send a message of some sort. Because he had the reef that was right next to the door that he could have used, and he also had a bunch of rocks that he could have used to destroy the camera. And there was some floodlights in the backyard that he had destroyed. So it's not like he was not destroying things. So to that point, I just think that he wanted to come out on camera. Maybe perhaps he wanted Savannah to see him, and that was a way for Savannah to see him. If this goes back to Savannah, mission accomplished. Savannah saw him. Savannah spoke to him on camera. Savannah showed fear. Savannah showed, she talked about how fearful she was, and what does that do to a person? Like let's just say this is that psychopath, sociopath, and if this person did have their interest was Savannah, and Savannah coming out crying, showing her vulnerability, showing how fearful she was, and then even going out to saying that when she saw the guy in the mask, that she was terrified for how her mother must have felt when she woke up. To see that, how do you think that makes the perpetrator feel?
In control. And that would be probably very rewarding, which is so sick if you think about it. Like, how could that be rewarding? But for somebody here, I mean, if that's the goal, is that instill fear or to get revenge or have a fantasy of some sort, that would all play into his identity. And I mean, most of the time we're going to see that would bring, I don't know if joy is the right word, but that would bring satisfaction is probably a better word, in my opinion, to him, not to anybody else.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too, and like I said, he got what he wanted. He got her to respond to him by saying, "We're here to play ball. Please reach out to us." He got her to ask him to reach out. I mean, I think when you boil it all down, like, that is all part of him being on that camera. I think that caused it. And so, well, we're over the 2-hour mark. I don't want to keep you too long. What do you have going on the rest of the week, Dr. Vona?
So first, I wanted to say, so I saw somebody say that, like, hearing the typing in the background, I do apologize. I feel like I have to, like, answer people in chat sometimes. So if you did hear that, I apologize for that. My other thing is, I want to do my next live is going to be related to eating disorders. So we were just talking about control. What a lot of people don't know is that eating disorders aren't about the look of somebody. It's a disorder of control. There's not many things that kids or like adolescents and young adults really have. There's not a whole lot they have control over. Eating is one of them. So when you feel out of control, eating disorders are a way to feel in control, even though it's a very out of control behavior. With that being said, I usually pick a psychology topic and I tie it to a case that's going on. And I'm going to tie it into Mackenzie Shirilla. And we don't know that Mackenzie has an eating disorder, so I'm not saying that she does, but I do think that I have enough evidence to back up why one should be concerned that she did. And it's a way for me to bring in eating disorders and to have a conversation about it with people so that they can understand the risks and how to get help if somebody needs it. How about you?
I will probably not be on until Wednesday, guys, unless something really crazy breaks. So Monday, tomorrow night, I'm actually talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, my favorite team, on a show called the Steelers Hangover on a channel called Steel Curtain Network. It airs out about 9 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. on the West Coast on Steel Curtain Network. You'll find me there if you want to, listen to my takes on football and things of that nature. I'm with a couple of my buddies. Tuesday night, I might come on live. Jaime, my buddy Jaime. He's a good friend of the show. He is he's gonna be in town. He's actually gonna be staying with me. He has to go do some stuff on Wednesday, awesome. And so he's gonna be here. And so if I can talk him into jumping on the live and just kind of sitting next to me, which is gonna be weird because it's hard to talk. It's easy to talk to somebody on here because you're looking at them. When you're next to each other, you want to look straight. So it's like, so
it's so awkward. It's so awkward. You're right.
It is, but I'm gonna see if I can get him up here, and we'll talk about that. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Steve says I'm not easily scared, but if I saw him on my front door, few meter would max out. 100%. 100%.
I can't say that. I can't leave without saying that the Eagles are the best. I just sorry.
Well, I mean, y'all did have Kenny Pickett for a couple of years there, so.
And if you guys, if he's not on tomorrow or Tuesday, come check me out because I might be on. So there you go.
Yeah, go check out Dr. Vona with the minds behind true crime with Dr. Vona. And
you got it right that time. It's usually a tongue twister for you. That came right out. That was a good one.
I know. It's because I wrote it. I'm just kidding. I did not write it down.
I'm okay with that if you did.
No, I didn't. Yeah, no, I might be a little bit dyslexic sometimes, guys. That's why when I work cases and stuff, I work them backwards.
It's not easier even that. I don't want anybody to think that that's what I meant. It's just, it is a tongue twister. The minds behind true crime with Dr. Like I never really said it, but so you're not the only one that gets a tongue twister on that. So I didn't even mean it that way. It is like a little.
No, you're all right.
It doesn't roll off the tongue very easy all the time.
But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys no later than Wednesday. But I'm going to try to get something going on Tuesday. Until then, guys, we'll see you then. Peace out, y'all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Daniel.